Sending your man to the shadow realm over some breakfast food. Sad. Just sad. Now available in paperback and e-readers, A Steam Horror in the Hamptons. The aspiring angel tries to escape a house of horrors in this action-packed, all-new Esteem series adventure. Get your copy of Esteem Horror in the Hamptons in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Sending your man to the shadow realm over some breakfast food. Sad. Just sad.
A family is grieving tonight after investigators say a woman shot her partner after an argument over breakfast.
The deadly shooting happened Sunday morning in Laplace. In an exclusive interview you see only on WWL Louisiana, Eleanor DeBone spoke to the aunt of the victim, Joshua Jones, who described her nephew as a hardworking man.
Joshua is my sister's only child. She waited a long time to have a child, and then when she and her husband had him, we were all very happy about that.
A mother with one child shares a profound bond with that child, one so powerful, nothing else could ever matter.
My sister is not doing well. He called her every day, all day, even though they lived in the same house.
Joshua Jones's aunt and pastor, Carla Jones, says her younger sister once shared her love with her two loves, her husband and her son.
My brother-in-law passed when he was about 14.
Now Pastor Carla, her sister and their family are grieving an emptiness words cannot describe.
He lived with his mom. He was just wanting to make sure that everything for her was okay.
According to the St. John the Baptist Sheriff's Office, deputies were called to a Laplace home Sunday morning. The Sheriff's Office says 24-year-old Tamari Hubbard from Marrero called 911 saying she shot her boyfriend in the chest. The office says Hubbard told deputies the duo were arguing over the food made for breakfast. Joshua died at the scene.
He was actually getting ready to come to church. My sister didn't know that she was there. And I'm just assuming that when he got ready to leave or whatever, that might have been a tipping point.
The Sheriff's Office says throughout the investigation, deputies learned the pair's relationship was volatile, but says there are no documented reports with the office.
I heard some things, that they would argue, that she would argue with him, because he was very laid back. To my knowledge, it never got to a point where it should have been anything this serious.
Hubbard is booked with second-degree murder.
I just would like him back.
Pastor Carla is urging the community to understand that gun violence doesn't just take lives, it shatters families.
Bullets literally cause finality.
Because now, she says, two families carry the weight of grief and heartbreak, one that may never fade.
He's been killed, so it means all of us have been killed. In a sense, there's a part of all of us that has literally died.
Eleanor DeBone, WWL, Louisiana.
According to the Sheriff's Office, Hubbard's being held in the parish jail on a $1 million bond.
Now, according to reports, 24-year-old Tammy Rue Hubbard of St. John's the Baptist Parish in Louisiana allegedly got in an argument with her 23-year-old boyfriend Joshua Jones over some breakfast food. And according to reports, Joshua Jones was looking to try to keep the household under a budget, and he was upset that Tammy Rue Hubbard went out here and ate a large amount of breakfast food, leaving not that much for him, and this is what led to him getting upset to the point where he got into an argument with his girlfriend. And as he got into that argument with his girlfriend, she took one of his own licensed guns and took it off the table on Sunday morning, and then took it and shot Joshua Jones in the chest. Now, after shooting Joshua Jones allegedly in the chest, Tammy Rue Hubbard contacted 911, and this is where St. John the Baptist Sheriff's Office deputies found Joshua Jones with a gunshot wound to the chest, and Tammy Rue Hubbard saying that she accidentally shot Jones in the chest as they were fighting over the meal and fighting over the food that was made for breakfast. And after finding Joshua Jones, in unresponsive, he was declared dead at the scene, and Tammy Rue Hubbard basically confessed to the crime after she was taken into custody. Now, the police in the St. John's the Baptist Sheriff's Department see the alleged actions of Tammy Rue Hubbard as an isolated incident, but when I take a critical examination of Tammy Rue Hubbard's alleged behavior, it definitely fits the pattern and profile of feminist indoctrinated women that I talk about in The Woman Crisis. And when I take a critical look at Joshua Jones's behavior, it definitely fits the pattern and profile for beta males that I talk about in my book, The Man Crisis. Now, Tammy Rue Hubbard basically was a feminist indoctrinated woman, and this feminist indoctrinated woman had very little respect for Joshua Jones as related to being the head of his house. And because she had little respect for him, this is why she acted impulsively to the point where she took one of his own guns and wound up shooting him at his own table in the chest, because when she looked at Joshua Jones, she did not see a man looking at her, looking to be a head and a leader over her. No, what she saw was another woman basically going out here and telling her that she basically was in the wrong. And this is what led to this whole argument escalating in between Joshua Jones and Tammy Rue Hubbard, because Joshua Jones was one of these beta males who had been raised by a single mother, and that single mother basically was one that basically had a codependent relationship with her son, and was one of these feminist indoctrinated women who basically thought she could raise a boy to become a man. But sadly, she did not raise a boy to become a man. She raised a boy who basically was a male who basically got involved with a woman who had absolutely no respect for him at all, had no respect, because as he was sitting there looking to assert his authority to go out here and put a budget over his household, Tammy Rue Hubbard basically showed how little respect she had for him, because she allegedly ate a larger amount of the breakfast food and left him none. And that was something she was doing passive aggressively, because passively what she wanted to do was have breakfast, but aggressively wanted to assert her authority over this male who basically did not know how to be a man. And when he saw this, he decided to think he could stand up for himself. And the way he approached things, as related to this breakfast food, showed how he had no good critical thinking skills, no ability to go out here and problem solve, because he looked to start an argument with Tammy Rue Hubbard. And as he looked to start that argument with Tammy Rue Hubbard, this is where the whole situation wound up escalating, and wound up escalating because this woman did not see this man as somebody that she respected or regarded. Because whenever a woman is in a relationship with a man and she respects that man, she may disagree with that man, but she will never think to escalate things into violence. But this woman thought to escalate things into violence because she saw a person who she thought was a subordinate going out here and challenging her authority. And that's what really led to the, I believe, possible motive for murder. Because when it came to Joshua Jones, a guy who came from a single mother household and had an aunt who was a pastor, he had basically been raised by women. And because he had been raised by women, he was basically effeminized, and again, basically was shown to be a completely weak male who Tammy Rue Hubbard, an older woman, felt that she did not need to regard because this man was younger than she was. And as he was younger than she was, she thought of him not as a boyfriend, but as a subordinate. And again, saw him in a subordinate, in a childlike role. I go in depth on this in another book that I wrote, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single, because when it comes to a lot of these Black women who are indoctrinated into feminism, they don't see a man in his role of God's order as a head. No, they see themselves as the leader of those men, and they believe it's the man who needs to submit to them. So whenever a man asserts himself in front of that woman, that Black woman does not see that man as anybody they need to regard. No, they see that man in a codependent relationship, and they see him in a codependent relationship in the role lower than the family pet. And since they see them as lower than the family pet, this is what motivates these women to believe they have the justification to do harm to that man who they say that they love. Again, it's because they don't love the man in an interdependent way, because in an interdependent relationship, a woman will respect a man and say, you know what, I know that he's out here working hard, and you know, if he's saying that we have a budget, I need to respect his authority. But in the case of this woman, she did not respect this man's authority because she had possibly been raised in feminism to never see men as anyone she needed to respect. And whenever he challenged her, she felt threatened by that challenge to the point where she wanted to do harm to her boyfriend and do harm to him almost immediately because she was being challenged by someone who she felt she did not need to regard. And that's where, again, Joshua Jones basically wound up losing his life over something trivial as breakfast food. Again, breakfast food which would be in the toilet in 8 hours. Again, something so trivial, but this woman had little regard for this black man's life because a black man's life has no value to a lot of feminist indoctrinated women. No, when it comes to feminist indoctrinated women do not see a black man as anyone they need to regard. They don't feel like this is a person they need to care about, and again, does not need to go out here and really care about or look to follow the lead of that man. And sadly, as this man was looking to try to lead this feminist, again, this feminist did not want to follow his lead. And since she didn't want to follow his lead, whenever he challenged her power, she looked to take her power by taking his guns and taking his life. And sadly, that's how this man wound up losing his life over some breakfast food that would have been in the toilet in less than 8 hours. And sadly, that's where Tammy Rue Hubbard's entire life went down the drain as related to her losing her intangibles of her freedom as related to life. I mean, that's what happens when a woman goes out here and acts impulsively. She winds up putting her freedom in jeopardy. And sadly, because this woman got caught up in her emotions, her whole life is now being flushed down the drain, just like that breakfast food was flushed down the drain in 8 hours. And she's gone from being a free woman to winding up who didn't want to submit to the authority of her boyfriend to winding up in a situation where she now has to submit to the authority of the COs inside of the county jail, and eventually, because she confessed, will be submitting to the authority of the COs in the penitentiary, where she will be not only under the authority of the COs, but the social pecking order of Big Betty, Big Martha, and Big Lou, and will basically rue the day that she basically argued with this dude over some breakfast food because she will be being served slop in the chow and will basically have to try to go out here and beg Big Betty, Big Martha, and Big Lou for some of that commissary and basically sacrifice her dignity for some commissary like Little Debbie snack cakes, ramen noodles, packets of Crystal Light lemonade, packets of Crystal Light tea, off-brand lemon lime drink, off-brand grape drink, off-brand fruit punch, off-brand apple juice, off-brand Oreo cookies, off-brand duplex cookies, off-brand vanilla wafers, off-brand ginger snaps, off-brand chocolate snaps, Hunt's snack pack puddings, Fritos chips, prison chips, hot and sour pickles, beef summer sausage, and all of this commissary, and basically we'll be winding up having to take a lick of some stuff that I will not describe on this channel in order to get those items in the commissary. That's sadly what's going to lead to Tammy Rue Hubbard. That's her fate for the rest of her life, because she did not sit down and think critically as she got in her feelings, with as related to an argument with this dude, and the whole thing that she could have done basically with this situation instead of getting into it with her boyfriend was basically realize, okay, if this guy is gonna be cheap, I'm gonna charge this guy to the game and basically move out of his house that's what a smart woman would do. She would realize that if this dude basically cannot manage his money and handle his business to the point where he's skimping on breakfast food, then this is not a guy I want to be in a relationship with, because if he's arguing over trivial stuff like food that's in the toilet, then he's not able to handle his business. I mean, this is something that shows you that this guy, again, really wasn't ready for manhood and basically created a situation that led to him being a man in crisis. Now, I don't mean to blame the victim here, but sometimes when it comes down to being a man, you've got to go be smart about things and say, you know what, okay, she's not respecting me and my decisions. It's time to just charge this woman to the game and keep it pushing. But sadly, when it comes down to many of these beta males, they don't really think critically about things. And as they don't think critically about things, they get into arguments over trivial things like food. And those things like food basically wind up leading to them losing more valuable things as related to life, like their intangibles of manhood, because no man wants to argue over food, because that really shows how low his self-worth is as related to his dignity, shows how he doesn't respect himself to say, you know what, I'm going to have enough here for myself to take care of my business. And again, if this woman don't respect me as a man to respect my decision to, again, keep things on a budget, then it's time for me to cut her out of the budget, charge her to the game, and basically handle my own business. That's what a man has to do. Again, when a woman openly disrespects you like this, again, you don't argue with the woman. You just go out here and say it's just time to be over, because this guy, again, didn't have that critical thinking to think, again, with that type of foresight. No, didn't have that type of thinking to think with that foresight. And sadly, he wound up taking a trip to the shadow realm, all due to him arguing with this woman who basically went from being able to be free to eat whatever she wanted in one man's house to winding up being in a place where she has to sacrifice her dignity inside of the penitentiary and have to take a lick of a clit, possibly, in order to, again, get some things in the commissary that are going to cost twice as much. I mean, when it comes to the commissary, you're paying at least about $3-4 for a $1 pack of off-brand cookies. You're paying, again, $2 or so for a Little Debbie snack cake, and having to lose your dignity as related to these items is really sad, because what's happening here is that this woman, again, went from being a woman in a toxic relationship to winding up becoming a woman in crisis, all because she couldn't control her emotions and could not go out here and understand that some things just are not worth fighting for. Now, if you want to learn why women like this woman wind up on a road to being women in crisis, and and I want to identify these behaviors to break out of the whole paradigm of being a feminist to become a woman, you can pick up my book, The Woman Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Woman Crisis at other online booksellers like Draft to Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you want to learn why women like this oftentimes wind up single for the rest of their lives, you can pick up my book, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single, to learn about the paradigm of failure that leads to women like this being single, and make it where they just cannot work with a man in a relationship. And if you want to see me make more videos like this about the woman crisis, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback. From the author of the critically acclaimed book, The Man Crisis, comes The Woman Crisis. Learn why so many women have become lost in their quest to have it all in The Woman Crisis. Get your copy of The Woman Crisis in paperback at Amazon.com and online booksellers today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.